Ever since UFC 314 wrapped up, I feel like a lot of fighters are demanding title shots. We have Yair saying he deserves the next title shot in Mexico. We have Silva saying he deserves the next title shot. I feel like the UFC always messes up the matchmaking and they always put together the wrong fights. But today we're going to be putting together the best fights possible, the fights that make sense in my opinion, and why I believe that Yair and Silva do not deserve title shots at all. Maybe number one contender fights, but not necessarily to face Volk next, in my opinion. Getting straight into it, Volk versus Movsar. You have to make this fight. You have to. And you have to make it soon. Both guys are ready. Volk did take a lot of damage, but he said he's ready. He wants to stay active. He wants to fight in the summer. So we can make this maybe late summer, maybe not July. Maybe that's too early. August, maybe October, something like that. We do not want the Yair rematch, especially not in Mexico. It makes absolutely no sense. When Yair said if he wins, Dana promised him the next title shot, I think that Dana or whoever, they were thinking about Yair and Lopes in Mexico for the title. They probably did not think that Volk was going to win, even though he was the favorite. And even if Volk lost and it was Lopes, Yair still did not deserve it more than Movsar. It didn't make any sense. I feel like they're trying to keep Evloev away from the belt. And if you look at his resume, it is by far better than anyone's. And the fact he may not even get the next title shot is insane. He has wins Arnold Allen, Aljamain Sterling, former champion, Dan Ige, Diego Lopes. I get it was short notice, but still. And a lot of those were very close fights, split decisions, stuff like that. But he still, I believe, won those fights in my opinion. I didn't think it was like a robbery or anything. They both are ready. Make this fight. Make it quick. And in the meantime, what do you do with Lopes, Yair? Well, very obvious. Lopes versus Yair, the most anticipated fight at 145 in my opinion. And usually I wouldn't say that this is a number one contenders fight, but if you look at 145, right, you have Ilya, he's in the rankings still, Max still ranked. Both of those guys said that they're doing a permanent move up to 155 because of the weight cut, stuff like that. So once you take out those two guys, there's not many contenders left, especially if Evloev gets the next title shot. It's really just these two guys, and you have up-and-comers like Murphy, Silva, other guys, but still, these are the two main guys. It makes the most sense rankings-wise. I don't know what they're ranked. I assume like 1 and 4, something like that. And it could be the co-main event of UFC 320 in Mexico, the pay-per-view 5-round co-main event. Even though Lopes lost, you could still make this fight. It still would be massive. It doesn't have to be for the belt. These guys don't like each other, so the build-up is what people are really excited about. And stylistically, it should be a really fun fight. Massive beef. Again, you have to make this fight. Moving on, I already made a whole video about this. Paddy, Pimblett, Justin Gaethje. This, again, makes the most sense. Paddy, he's in a must-win situation. He's a rising superstar, one of the UFC's last hopes, one of the last potential, I guess, like McGregor, not knockoffs, but, big star potential. And we need to see Topuria fight Paddy, but not yet. That is a massive fight. In order for that to happen, Pimblett needs to win his next fight, and he needs to fight someone in the top 5. Who's the easiest matchup for him? Justin Gaethje. 100% Justin Gaethje in the top 4 or whatever. It's a guaranteed fun fight. Paddy needs fun fights. Gaethje has never been in a boring fight. Needs a finish. Almost a guaranteed finish. Probably on either side, I would imagine. And I think that Pimblett, for a guy like Justin Gaethje, he has pretty much as big of a name as like Armin or a bigger name than Armin. About the same as Oliveira. And if you're going to make one of those 3 fights because you're not going to give Paddy the title shot, just do Justin Gaethje. It makes the most sense. Gaethje does not deserve a title shot, in my opinion. Moving on, we have Michael Chandler got dominated against Pimblett. Who should he face? In my opinion, I feel like he has to face Fiziev. It was very tough because I feel like he probably should retire, but you have to put Chandler in just striking matchups now for the most part. He's shown he's not going to compete with the best. He's not elite anymore. He never really was super elite. I get he almost won the title, but still, he's not top 5 material. I saw they moved him all the way down to number 12, which I think is deserved given he hasn't won a fight since 2022, early 2022, and over like 3 years or something. But still, I don't want to see him against guys like Grant Dawson, Ignacio, guys like that, the up-and-comers, because it's just like, I know he's going to lose. And it's just not super exciting, and we're just going to see him get out-grappled for the most part. So I don't think that makes much sense, but he's in a weird position where he can't really compete against the best. You could put him against a guy like Dan Hooker in the rematch, I guess. But I think Fiziev is the perfect fight because he's a striker. It could be a competitive fight. You know, Chandler has shown he has a big grappling weakness. Doesn't really have much of a striking weakness, though. He's still good on the feet, very powerful, very dangerous. Fiziev is in a tough position because he also hasn't won a fight since like 2022 or something like that. He's been injured. He's been out. He lost his comeback fight against Gaethje, but was very close on short notice. It was a good performance. If it wasn't on short notice, he probably would have won. His gas tank was his biggest issue. I say make this fight. It's going to be a guaranteed fun fight. Probably no grappling. You need Chandler at this point. He's old. Just fun fights. He's not really competing anymore. Fiziev needs a win bad. Make this fight, in my opinion, and it's competitive. Moving on to another rising star in the UFC, Gene Silva. I think that he should face Arnold Allen in his next fight. I feel like this is the most interesting matchup you can make. That makes sense. Now, featherweight, again, is very weird. I think Gene Silva is ranked 11, if I'm not mistaken. Allen is 6. Because of Silva's dominant performance, crazy finish, he deserves to face like the highest guy almost imaginable. Not like Yair or like Lopes, even though I would love to see Yair versus Silva, but because of the Lopes beef, I think you have to make that fight. The reason I say we have to make this fight is you could do Gene Silva versus Ortega. I don't want to see that fight because I know Silva is going to knock him out, or at least a dominant decision similar to the Dober fight. I don't want to see that. It's not going to be competitive. Aljamain Sterling, maybe it's more competitive because he's a little bit younger, I think, than Ortega, or maybe they're the same age. He's taken less damage. His chin may be a little bit better now because Ortega, well, actually, I don't know about that. But still, I don't want to see either of those guys fight Gene Silva because I'm pretty confident Silva would win. Even though both of those are better grapplers than Bryce Mitchell, still, I don't want to see those fights. I'd rather see Ortega face someone like Lerone Murphy, where it's like, oh, that's kind of a competitive fight, you know? He's not going to get finished early. You know, that's a competitive 50-50, 60-40 fight. That's what I want to do, competitive fights. Aljamain Sterling, I'd want to see him face maybe like Aaron Pico. I believe he's coming to the UFC now. They almost booked him against Evloev, but they didn't make the fight. I'd like to see him face Aljamain Sterling. I think that would be interesting. Clearly, they want to put him very high in the rankings. I say make that fight, and Lerone Murphy shouldn't have to face Gene Silva because he just won. He should be able to fight up. And I would say Allen for that fight, but honestly, I think Silva deserves it a little bit more. I say Gene Silva, Arnold Allen, make that fight. Make it quick. Both guys need to fight. They both are ready to fight. And it's the most interesting and probably fun matchup where it's very competitive. Make that fight, in my opinion. Moving on, Bryce Mitchell, the loser. I would say retire, honestly. He's just taken so much damage, and he looked so bad against Silva. The first round, he looked good. His striking looked good. It's just his gas tank is bad, and he gives up in fights. You could see him wilt in fights. His grappling isn't as good as I thought. I think it is overrated. I feel like he's just known for taking down Ilya that one time. He is overall a good grappler, but still. Pat Sabatini, though, he deserves a ranked opponent. Now that I think about it, I think Bryce isn't ranked, but still, he deserves close to the rankings, which Bryce Mitchell is. I think the grappling would be fun. I like grappler versus grappler matchups and then striker versus striker. Usually they're more entertaining than striker versus grappler. Bryce, he needs to fight an up-and-comer. I get Sabatini isn't really super young. He's not like an up-and-comer, but he's a guy moving up the rankings, and he's close to being ranked. Someone who's on a win streak, and I don't want to see him face like a Steve Garcia where I'm like, yeah, he's probably going to get knocked out easily. So I'd like to see this fight. I think it would be an interesting matchup, and it would be competitive. You know, I feel like this is close to a 50-50. Pat Sabatini dominated Joe Anderson Brito. Domination. I was not expecting that. I say make this fight. I think that this is interesting. Mitchell didn't take too much damage in his last fight, so unless he just wants time off, I think that you could make this next, maybe like an Apex co-main event or something like that. Moving on, Pitbull, I say have him fight Edson Barboza. Again, featherweight is very weird. Pitbull, I don't think he's ranked. I don't think he got a ranking because of his Yair performance. And I don't think that you should have him fight another ranked opponent, honestly. He's old, and I feel like those ranked opponents are for the young up-and-comers, in my opinion. You could do him versus like Dan Ige or Josh Emmett, but again, I'd rather see those guys face other young up-and-comers, in my opinion. And I feel like Edson Barboza, similar age, striker, also striker versus striker. And it's just kind of like a legacy matchup, two old guys, where it doesn't have much meaning, but it probably would be a fun fight. Some guy could get knocked out. It's tough. I say make this fight. Maybe you do Pitbull versus Emmett. Next up and lastly, we have Dominick Reyes. He's 3-0 in his last 3 fights, 3-fight win streak, all finishes. And he deserves someone in the top 6, top 5, around there. He called out Yair, called out Jan, and he called out Rakic. I feel like Rakic is the least entertaining of those 3, but it makes the most sense. I think Yair, I know he wants to avenge that loss. He should face Olberg, in my opinion. Jan Blachowicz arguably beat, I believe, Olberg. I thought he won the fight, and I know he wants to avenge that loss. I'd love to see that fight. Or Rakic. It all comes down to whoever can do the quickest turnaround and whoever could fight the soonest. Reyes took no damage. He should fight in the summer. Rakic last fought in October. He looks healthy. He should be healthy. And that's a long enough layoff for him to be able to fight. Blachowicz just fought. He's way older. I just think it makes more sense to do Reyes versus Rakic compared to all the other options. And if he wins that, he's in a title eliminator. He said he wants one more fight for the title, and then he could fight for the belt. I think he needs 2 more, probably. But still, if he wins those, this is a winnable fight, competitive. Rakic is chinny. Reyes is chinny. Rakic doesn't have a lot of power, though. He's very technical, very good. I'd like to see this very competitive. But yeah, those are all the matchups I have and what I think the UFC has to do, the fights that make the most sense, in my opinion. Let me know what you think. Let me know what you disagree with. And yeah, that is it for me.